At this point, let's now welcome Jake Epelle, who is the founder and CEO of TAF Africa. Hello and a very good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining us on Morning Express.
Morning.
It's
Good to be
wonderful to
here.
have you here. First, I would want to get your reaction to the results of the U.S. general elections, the presidential elections, where Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, now President-elect, won the election by more than 270 electoral votes in the U.S.
Democracy has spoken. The ballot has confirmed that Donald Trump is the 47th president of the United States, although his current status is that of a president-elect. He defied the odds and turned and ensured that he disappoints the political pundits. And here we are with someone that nobody thought will emerge. Well, especially us outside the U.S. I think the U.S. Citizens knew exactly what they wanted, and that's exactly what they have. We've gotten. So I would say, whether you like him or not, whether you are his supporter or not, whether you subscribe to his policies or not, Donald Trump is now going to be the 47th president, and there is nothing anybody can do about it. I'm not a firm supporter of his policies. However, democracy has spoken, and he spoke loud. And I'm very quite impressed with the development in the U.S. I think for the first time in a long time that a Republican won both the popular vote as well as the Electoral College. Donald Trump won 294 Electoral College and over 72 million votes, going to statistically is about 50.9%. So he's broken the odds, and I'm sure his camp is very happy about the development. What that portends politically across the globe can be a discussion we will look at in this on your show.
Well, talking about what it portends across the globe, of course, we know the U.S. has high stakes, especially in the Middle East, with the crisis currently rocking that region, where Israel is basically at war with all of its neighbors. And we also saw the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu congratulating Trump, creating some sort of alliance with the president-elect. And Trump has also, on his part, promised that he will put an end to the war in the Middle East. How do you think he will come about this? Firstly, are we seeing a sort of collaboration with the Israeli side? How exactly will Trump stop the war?
Well, that's a whole lot of discussion because, but again, Trump is in the very good book of Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, and oftentimes he listens to Trump. He feels that Trump advertises his strength and can pull a string at any point in time. So they have some good understanding. And so, peradventure, he could advise the sitting prime minister of Israel to sort of soft pedal. So it's a, chances are there, the possibilities are there that he could tone down the situation in Israel and entire Middle East. There's a possibility. The other possibility is Ukraine war. He's also in the good books of Putin. He could. There's a possibility he could also pull the strings. Chances are that may happen. Both of them are very close to him, and they may want to patronize him by by taking his advice and discontinuing the war. But one thing for sure, uh, Donald Trump is a businessman to the core. The funding of those wars is likely to take a bit of a backseat because his agenda, his policies has been nation first, and he tries to exhibit that every step of the way. So there is a possibility. But then globally, whether it's democracy or rule of law, I have my concern, knowing fully well some of his antecedents and the rhetorics that he has used previously, and the kind of people that he supports. Viktor Orban, these are detectors, obvious. Putin, the North Korean guy, uh, So I am very a bit concerned about how he's going to manage those relationships. But something that was said yesterday in one of the international media that caught my attention is the fact that Donald Trump may not do most of the things that he's saying he will do because he knows that the system will checkmate him. The American system is robust. It will checkmate him. Yes, the American president have excessive power, but there are system that curtails those powers. So he may not necessarily do all that he wants to do. But what he has said will fuel tension of his people who are in the street, and they are likely to carry out those actions. And I pray they don't. But that's what is likely to play out. But my brother, it's it's important here to notice the happenings and to underscore the fact that and to underscore the fact that uh, we have seen today that in all that played out, and I'm talking about the U.S. election, we have seen um, gender parity, at work because Kamala Harris, obviously, the situation looks more like the U.S. are not ready for a woman president.
Now,
So the issue,
Mr. Jake, in addition to your comment, if you remember back in the last elections when Trump ran against Kamala Harris, not the 2020 general elections, the one he won and became president.
Hillary,
He ran against Hillary Clinton.
Hillary,
I beg your pardon. He
yes,
ran against
yes,
Hillary Clinton. He clinched the presidential seat and became president.
mm-hmm,
And now
mm-hmm,
recently he ran against Kamala Harris, another woman. Now in
mm-hmm,
Kamala Harris's case, it's more significant because she was looking to become the first woman and the first woman of color
mm-hmm,
to become
mm-hmm,
U.S. president. But
mm-hmm,
I've seen a lot of comments online. I've seen videos. I've seen tweets from mostly women
mm-hmm,
activists who have
mm-hmm,
claimed or said that this is very unlikely that in a country like America that is considered a very liberal nation, you would
mm-hmm.
have a situation where sexism is an order of the day, where a female president cannot emerge, no matter who she's contesting against. Is that the situation?
That's what I was trying to explain because we've seen that the America that preaches gender equality, we're seeing the undertone practice of gender inequality. There is no doubt that the issue of gender played out in this election, the issue of race played out in this election, the issue of nationalism played out in this election, the issue of core values, especially Christian faith, played out in this election. So back to your question, yes, there is an obvious gap in bridging the gender inequality, and we have seen that in the result of this election. Because if If Democrat had put out a very strong candidate who is male, maybe now we would have been saying something different, you know. So these are some of the challenges that I have, that uh, obviously alludes to what you have said. There is an issue of gender, and as we make progress, we can delve deeper into all of that. But it's not a very good development for gender advocates, especially the women folk, globally. Somebody like Kamala Harris would have heightened their advocacy, and of course the implementation of policies that would patronize, that would uh, further enhance gender equality. But the reverse is the case. I don't think that is in the radar of Donald Trump. No.
Well, let's talk about immigration policies of Donald Trump. In the last tenure where he served as president, we saw how very stringent he was with his immigration policies, building a wall between the U.S. and Mexico, so, deporting immigrants, and now he's yet again threatening a bigger and a mass deportation of immigrants from the U.S. to other parts of the world. This is also at the backbone of where President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is congratulating President-elect Trump and also calling for some sort of mutual collaboration between Nigeria and the U.S. Are we
Mm.
seeing this sort of mass deportation also affecting Nigerians in the U.S.? Or what is the situation? How would our international relationship be like with the U.S. with the coming of Donald Trump on board again?
Hey, look, there are political talks and there are realities. Donald Trump was saying he was going to deport how many millions of immigrants? I whether 5 million or thereabout. That is not going to happen, because you don't need an IQ of a mushroom to know how much it will cost the U.S. It's going to run into billions to deport that number of immigrants. You know, and it's not only Nigerians. Nigerians have a significant number of immigrants in the U.S. However, Nigeria is not the only country. There are several other countries that have a similar number of immigrants in the states, and most of them, some of them, a large number of them are actually legal. Very, very little are illegal, and then there are also others that are pursuing their immigration papers. So um, it's not just a target on Nigeria or Africa. There are other nationals that are in the U.S. That are there illegally, which is not commendable. I wouldn't be on your show commending people to travel to countries where they don't have the necessary documentation to stay there legally, to continue to do that. But it's more of talk, and less work. Let me give you statistics. During the tenure of Obama, Obama deported more immigrants than Donald Trump did in his 4 years first tenure. And so it's not an easy um, a road to travel. And so I don't see uh, it will happen because he wants to please his base and perpetuate his autonomy and leadership within the Republican Party. There will be some measure of deportation, but not as big and in numbers as what he has been saying.
Well, Mr. Jake, you have quite beautifully laid out that point. But let's also talk about the image of America on the global scene concerning racism in a situation like this? It appears that the actual rednecks, the core Americans, who are mostly Trump supporters and who were hugely part of the Make America Great Again campaign that led up to what we are now seeing unfolding in the US, have been quite accused of some sort of subtle racism towards people of color and other nationals who are not, American citizens. How do they defend this if they were to? And do you think that perhaps Trump would have a more strategic approach towards it that would actually relay the message that indeed they are not as racist, or they are not even racist the way people construe them to be?
Well, racism is a global phenomenon. Racism happens across board. There are some countries that there is an obvious practice of uh, race card, and America is part of that country, and but you can't holistically say that they are the only one. There are several, even within the African continent. There are countries that are racist in nature, racist in policy, racist in their act. I mean, we're just witnessing what has been happening in Libya. That is gross racism. We have also witnessed at a point what happened in South Africa and several other countries. So racism is entrenched in American society, and there are people who openly practice it uh, in words and by their body language. They openly practice it, and some of them do it in such a way that they just don't care. There's nothing you can do about it. And unfortunately, many of them are in Republican Party and in Trump's camp, So these kind of practices, which is not acceptable globally or locally, does happen. How would they address it? By not treating it as elephant in the room. They have to take proactive measure in ensuring that they play down the rhetorics, um, do everything possible to have a clear-cut policies that will address the issue of racism, and also to have programs and projects that will help those that are victims of racism, and then of course to create a pathway, economic pathway that would give them some measure of wealth within the society, so that they can deal with their own personal issues, as well as they collectively work with the sitting government to deal with the issue of racism at a broad base, as a broad-based issue. So America is not the only country, but it does happen in America, bearing in mind their population and the population of blacks, Hispanics, and so on and so forth. My brother, it will interest you that the people that gave Donald Trump this victory are two sets of people: the Hispanics, the same Hispanics that they were driving the narrative that Donald Trump insulted, which is true. He's the people um,
In his camp.
in his camp,
Yeah.
yes, did do that. But yet, there is something that this man is doing that other politicians should learn. It's not just his populist ideology and his leftist, left-centered philosophies. There is something about Donald Trump and the things that he has recognized, which is effectively implementing, that is giving him this edge. He has come to study the American politics and American politicians. He knows how to ruffle their feathers. He's not perfect. He is not perfect. Neither is he going to be perfect. But he knows how to perfect his games. And he has used it to the betterment of his own political agenda. Uh, Donald Trump will go down in history as one of the most prominent politician. Remember that what he has done now, he has repeated history of 100 years ago or more, when a particular U.S. president, I can't remember his name, failed after his first term, then went ahead to
and
win.
ran for office again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You understand?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Donald J. Trump has beaten all political pundits and all the hindrances and all that. And today he has emerged. If anyone is thinking that Donald is going to go to jail, that person might as well forget it.
I was going
He's
to come to that just before you mentioned it. Now we all know how much of a troubling situation he has had, both politically and legally in the U.S. Being the first ever president, whether sitting or former president, to be charged with to face criminal charges, and now he is
and impeached
president. He is
twice.
president elect. How much of an impact will this have on his presidency when he gets to the Oval Office?
I mean, Donald Trump has beaten all history that you can think of, all odds that you can think of. He was charged, he was first impeached twice, even though the Senate did not approve it. He had 34 felony counts, accusation of all kinds of sexual immorality, um, troubled businesses, and all that, you know. So all that will not count, my brother, because this man is now the American president. He will get in there and Donald Trump can do whatever he wants, whatever he likes, within his executive arm. He
And
would
you
go,
don't think
he
that
will go
perhaps
ahead
the
and forgive
Democrats
himself.
could capitalize on this to sort of make his regime a bit turbulent?
No, Democrats cannot, because they've lost both houses. This is historic. They've lost the House of Rep. They have lost the Senate. They are now 42, 50, 44, I think, 52 in the Senate. That's a wide margin. In the House of Representatives, I think they are 207 to 100 and something. I mean, if I check my system, I researched it last night. Definitely, they've lost the two houses. 27 governors leaving the Republican to less than that. So he is in a very good position to deliver the dividends of democracy. But if he chooses to do otherwise, American system will checkmate him, but it's going to be a tough battle because you're talking to the most powerful man in the world.
Well, let's still talking about the image of America on the global scene. We have just about 5 minutes to wrap up the conversation, but I want you to react to some statements or comments made by Americans and non-Americans during the tenure of Joe Biden, where they said that he has made a ridicule of himself and a ridicule of the U.S. In the world, considering the fact that when Donald Trump was president, countries like Russia, China, and the likes, even Israel, paid so much respect to the US president and the US. But with the coming of Joe Biden, that respect sort of plunged into the ground. Is Donald Trump likely to reinstate that good image of America as a superpower that it is on the global stage?
Look, I follow global trends politically and by way of commentary as well. That statement is not absolutely correct. I don't think President Biden did not handle himself well on the global scene. In fact, if you're talking about someone who did not handle himself very well on the global scene, is Donald Trump during his last
While
presidency.
Trump was president, he established relationships with countries like North Korea. Kim Jong Un was paying so much respect to Donald Trump. They even had a meeting. But with the coming of Biden,
My
It
friend,
was like countries like Russia, China, Israel, North Korea, and the likes sort of washed their hands off of the US and they didn't want to have any form of deep connection or relationship with the United States.
because Biden was not going to be as transactional as Donald Trump. I mean, I can come back on your show and we discuss this in a wider, and I'll give you much more deeper perspectives. Look, listen, the world has come to respect America more, more. Forget about Donald Trump is one that if you are in his space and you praise him, he gives you everything you want. you know that wouldn't happen with Biden. Biden wasn't looking for their praise. Biden was just one who has a heart to serve his people. You cannot compare the track record of Biden, whether it's in leadership or in service. You cannot. This is a man who has served his country at its various level, legislative and executive, for over 50 years, without any iota of crisis, apart from all the claims around his son. And I'm not here to defend Biden, but I'm just trying to present an objective view to your viewers. So it's not true to say that the world has come to respected America more when Donald Trump was there. They were just concerned about his rhetorics and his threats and all that, and they just allow him to do whatever he wanted to do. But that's not with Biden. Biden is a core diplomat whose foreign policy has brought a lot of respect to America. He activated diplomatic dialogue in getting whatever he wants. You know, and of course he took actions too. In places where he has to take action. The only thing is the fact that if Biden has seen today, he probably would have bailed out earlier so that Democrats will find a very strong candidate. And I'm not saying that Harris is not a very strong. She's not a very strong candidate. I mean, I wish that she had won. However, um, America has come to be more respected today than who. What are you talking about, my brother? How can you endorse anybody who is dealing with North Korea, with the level of human rights abuse and the corruption? How can you endorse anybody who is dealing with Putin? How will you endorse anybody who is dealing with all the sharp practices of China? That's not a good omen. That's not a good yardstick to determine whether Donald Trump did well or not. How did he engage North Korea? If you are in leadership, would you engage North Korea? Nobody wants to deal with him because he is not a leader that can be trusted. Somebody who is spending more money acquiring armament, and his people are dying of poverty.
What,
Do
what,
you know the level of starvation in North Korea?
well, Mr. Jake, I'm afraid this is all time will permit us to take on the program. I wish we had more to discuss this more in depthly, but it's been a pleasure having you lend your thoughts to the issue of the just concluded U.S. presidential elections.
One aspect we didn't talk about, maybe next time, is what does this election, what's the significance of this election to Nigerian democratic system and Africa as a whole? That will be a discussion for another day, but I'm
We'll
willing to
bear
come.
that in mind and we'll certainly invite you on the program again. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you. God bless.